Welcome to BizTech Conversations. I'm Sharon Chang, and our guest today is Sara Hedin, Business Sweden's Trade Commissioner to Malaysia. Welcome to the show, Sara.
Thank you very much.
Sara, could you tell us briefly what is Business Sweden's role and its objectives?
Yes, of course. So Business Sweden, which is a Swedish Trade and Invest Council here in Malaysia, work with Swedish companies to help Swedish companies grow their sales and grow their business outside of Sweden, and also international companies to invest and expand in Sweden. So our role is really to work together with Swedish companies with strategical advice, sales acceleration, promotional activities, and this is something we do in close collaboration also with the Swedish Embassy.
Okay. So currently, how many Swedish companies are operating in Malaysia now?
In Malaysia, at the moment, we have close to 100 companies, actually.
Okay.
So it's...
Okay, Sara, globally, what are Sweden's main exports?
Globally or here to
globally.
Malaysia specifically?
No,
I would
globally.
say it's in general, it goes for both actually, but I would say vehicle equipment, machinery,
I see, okay.
electronic equipment, pharmaceuticals, and paper and products, I would say, are those main. And this goes for ASEAN specifically as well, are those main areas that are being exported.
So in ASEAN, where are your main markets?
The main markets are the key markets, I would say, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and also the Philippines are the main markets, I would say, where more or less 90% of the exports is.
All right. So, and which sectors are the
similar to the ones I mentioned? Then it's vehicle equipment, electronics,
and
machinery.
Who are the key investors then?
The key investors that are here. We have many of the Swedish multinationals that are being both present in these markets. And just to mention a few, we have Volvo, Scania, Ericsson, SKF, Atlas Copco, a lot of those that have been running their business for more than 100 plus 150 years and have been in the region for half a century almost. Here in Malaysia, we see many of the companies have been here for more than 60 years actually.
And IKEA is one of your biggest ones here in Malaysia, right?
They are definitely, yes.
And Ericsson too?
Ericsson as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in 2019, Sweden's exports to Malaysia was around $330 million and Malaysia's exports to Sweden is around $293 million. So obviously it's the balance of trade is in favor of Sweden. So can you tell us how the trade flows are like? What do we sell and what do we buy from each other?
I think first of all, when we look at these numbers, it's always difficult to how you define these numbers, and we usually from our end we're a bit careful when looking at these numbers because first of all they only tell you what is being exported from Sweden, and what we see, I mean, is a lot that is being exported not directly from Sweden and also from the companies being present here as well. So I think the number is much larger than that, and it goes in both directions. And then also depending on the definitions, at the moment, like I said, it's 2019, the Swedish trade might be in favor, but just looking a couple of years back, it was actually the other way around. So I would say the trade balance is very, very even. But just to give a highlight, I think when it comes to the export and looking at those numbers, it is again mainly vehicle, machinery, and electronics equipment that is being exported from Sweden. The other way around, if we look at what Malaysia exports to Sweden, electronics obviously being a big part, and rubber and rubber-related equipment, and also chemical products and miscellaneous chemical products are the key.
We don't export our palm oil over to Sweden?
That is being partly exported as well in different, but I would say it's not related to electronics. Is definitely the big part, and that is something that goes into across industries. So, and just to highlight also, we realized the importance of the electronics industry, especially now during COVID as well, where we realized that a lot of the electronics is being used in critical medical equipment that was being exported to source for ventilators, etc. So Malaysia definitely played a critical part.
Yes, especially now during the pandemic.
Exactly, it became very evident and was a critical product at that time.
So Sara, you mentioned roughly there are about 100 Swedish companies operating here. So can you share with us what are the main challenges that they are actually facing?
Yeah, when it comes to Swedish companies in Malaysia, first of all, I mean, like I mentioned, many of them have been here for a very long time, coming up to some of them 50, 60 years. So I think one of the things, and they are what we see, the group of Swedish companies have consistently been growing, and all of them are here for the long run. So which means that when it comes to challenges, I think what they have become experts in is dealing with these challenges and overcoming them. And one of the key things has been to have a continuous dialogue with government, with agencies, etc. So I wouldn't say there is not one key challenge, but of course what the challenges relate to in most cases are regulations, and that is something that have changed over the years. So a couple of years back there was a lot about the tax challenges, moving from GST to SST. But that is something that was solved and overcome as well. And now recently, obviously during the MCO, there was a lot of challenges to related to that. So I think it's hard to say one key challenge, but the key is really that to work to solve them, and that has been one of the keys.
So how have we been actually addressing it? Have we been doing it, been able to actually sustain the investors of Swedish investors instead of them moving away? Are they still, keen in the Malaysian landscape?
Definitely. I would say it's so far the investors have been growing. Both, I would say, the ones that are here. The general view is that they keep growing. They invest and they keep investing and are growing their business. And this is a trend we continue to see. And at least up till last year, we saw a consistent growth of new companies entering Malaysia. Obviously this year it has been a bit of a slowdown. Exactly.
It's not only here, but it's affecting globally. So
so this is something, but this will be interesting to see, and for next year what the trend will be, if it is a temporary slowdown, but I think the general trend is definitely, and especially for the ones that are already in Malaysia, they continue to grow.
So what about for Malaysian companies seeking opportunities in Sweden? What do they need to understand, maybe in terms of policies, trade relations, maybe even sustainability or culture? So.
Yeah, I think first of all, I think there is definitely this is an area where we definitely would like to attract more Malaysian companies. It's so far our focus has been very much on the other way around, bringing Swedish companies to Malaysia. So we are definitely looking forward to working more and hope to see more Malaysian companies coming to Sweden. And I would say there is no specific. I think it goes like with any when you're expanding into any country, you need to understand the business point of view, the business location you are moving into, and so this is usually something. When we work with Malaysian companies wanting to entering, it's a lot of focus on understanding local regulations, policies, also understanding which networks, which clusters do I connect to, and then also definitely location. Sweden is, I don't know if you take size-wise, I would say, is it 3.5 or 4 times the peninsula of Malaysia? So even though we're a small country with only 10 million people, we have a large geography. And obviously the big cities like Stockholm, Gothenburg, Malmö are key locations, which would be the first one to look into. But depending on which industry you are in. There might be other strategic locations. We see an interesting part now of northern Sweden where there is a battery cluster being formed and developed. If you're into manufacturing, there might be other clusters that are outside of the big cities that might be relevant for you. So it's a lot related to those questions, both understanding local regulations, but also location and identifying the key clusters.
So Sweden is actually looking more to the manufacturing sector. What are the sectors that are attractive to Sweden?
It's a combination. I mean, it's a broad areas. Manufacturing, obviously, being a large one, and that is also what we see here in Malaysia with a lot of Swedish manufacturing companies. But then you have the services industry. We have many of the startups like Spotify, Klarna, and being brought up there. So it's a big mix actually. And now I would say also within sustainability. That spans across industries, but that is definitely an area as well, which is of highest priority in Sweden. So I think there definitely a lot of opportunities there, and there you have different sectors: industry sector, transport sector, and also within retail and commercial. So I wouldn't point out one single industry that is dominant, but it's a combination of many.
Sara earlier mentioned that I mean, obviously there are challenges and there's no specific challenge, not one key challenge. But so what more can Malaysia do actually to attract more Swedish companies into Malaysia?
I think, I mean, the basics...
Besides those that are already operating
here.
So.
Exactly. No, it's a good question. And I think, I mean, the basics are here. Malaysia is looking at both the strategic location and the way, I mean, the ease of actually establishing and setting up business has attractive. That has also been the reason for attracting so many companies. And then also, many of the companies are not primarily setting up their business to reach the Malaysian market. I mean, it's
like Malaysia is like a hub, a destination hub for them to actually expand elsewhere into the ASEAN region.
Yes, exactly. But I think going forward, I mean, what will be really important and where we have to see after this year is really to show, I mean, investors want to see predictability.
Yes.
They want to see stability.
Of course.
And I think this is an area that will be key going forward to see, or for Malaysia to show as well, that there is stability and predictability.
Yeah, especially currently with our political, instability. Definitely it would impact inflows of trade into Malaysia.
No, exactly. And again, I mean, the Swedish companies that are looking into setting up business here, what they are comparing Malaysia to, since this is more, in most cases, a location to be able to reach ASEAN or even APAC, you could, I mean, then the decision could also be to set up business in a neighboring country as well. So I mean, that is the comparison, and that is often in many cases what the companies are looking at. And then of course it will be that comparison. And then again, it is for the long term, so it is stability that I think is the key. The key thing, and that has also been one of the key decisions which have made so many companies previously enter into Malaysia and set up business, because there has been a clear view of a stable and long-term.
Sarah, you mentioned earlier about startups, and Sweden has a vibrant startup culture, right? So, and the pace of new business creations has been accelerating. So what has Sweden been doing right? Maybe you can share with us.
But it's an interesting question, and it is definitely something that we see is growing. And I would say it's a combination of things. It's not one answer to it, but it's a combination. If we look historically, Sweden consisted of these large companies that are now the multinationals that we see. There were not that many smaller startups, but at that time, innovation has always been the key, and that has always been the essentials in these companies as well, because Sweden is such a small market, and in order for these companies to survive, they need to renew themselves, and they need to reach out to international markets as well. So innovation has really been an essential in these companies in order for them to survive. And that has also been the reason why they are now living on for 100 plus years. But then I think, so that is one thing, that innovation is part of the culture. But then what we saw also I think in the 90s was that there was some shifts in regulations which made it easier to start up new business and to compete with the established companies. And this actually coincided with the boom of internet, which made that a lot of people started up new business, and at the same time also experimented with new technology. And this, I would say, at that time created a lot of interesting companies. Thirdly, we have, the social security and the social and the welfare system that allows people to take the risk and start up a new company without losing things like education, healthcare, because there is free education, there is a free healthcare system. Childcare is heavily subsidized as well, which means that you can take on the risk or chance, if you see, to start up your business, and if you fail, you don't risk to you still can go to the hospital, you still can have your children go to school, etc. So that also, and then I would say the fourth one is a culture of knowledge sharing. Again, we are a very small country, and you can't afford to do things on your own. So within these clusters as well, there is a culture of actually between startups, you see a lot of knowledge sharing and learning from each other and learning from each other's mistakes. So I think all that, and then with a culture of where you learn, where we learn from school already that it's allowed to make mistakes. You're allowed to make mistakes, fail and try again.
Yes.
All of that together,
exactly.
All of that, I would say, has created this culture, which I think now we see is this boom of startups that
do you
keep
see
growing.
them coming into Malaysia?
We definitely do. Yes, many have come already, and in different sectors. So we have startup.
Mainly in which sector?
I would say we've seen in the manufacturing, in the industrial sector, we've seen startups and scale-ups related to that are delivering technical equipment or technical solutions for the manufacturing. We see within cybersecurity, within fintech. So it's a combination of areas, definitely.
That's lovely. Sarah, with the current economic climate, due to COVID. So what is your strategy with businesses' involvement in Malaysia?
I think for next year, first of all, what we have seen is a bit of it's been a special year.
Yes.
But I think many Swedish companies have actually sustained fairly well, actually, and a lot thanks to their high level of digitalization.
Of course, yes.
That turned out to be critical, and that even though I think Q2 was a dip for, if not for everyone, for most of the companies, we could see many of them bounce back quite quickly, thanks to being quite digitalized and being able to do a lot, both working from home, but then also when it comes to their production plants, etc., being able to do a lot of things remotely with remote services and reaching out to your customers without actually visiting them. So I think the recovery has already started, and it's in many cases it is business as usual. What I think will be the key going forward, and what we see is a lot of focus on now, is the sustainability part, because now we have come out, we are maybe still in a bit of a crisis, but are coming out from it.
Yeah, but with the vaccine, I think it should improve, right?
Exactly, but what we realize as well now is that we have, if not an even bigger problem ahead of us. With the whole sustainability, and this is something now when we recover, we need to have the sustainability focus in mind as well. And this is not new for Swedish companies, I would say, but it has become the urgency has improved, and this now I would say spans across everything in all the collaborations and the activities that we are doing, and what we see from Swedish companies as well is really that sustainability, it spans across everything from the solutions but also in the way of doing business, and so it has really moved and shifted from creating awareness and doing CSR activities in the society to actually being a core part of the business. So 2021, I think, is definitely a sustainability focus.
So
in Malaysia.
sustainability will be the scenario planning for Swedish companies moving forward.
Yeah, because I think you can't afford to not
true.
think about it. It's not a choice anymore.
Yes.
It's and what we see even is that it's not a compliance thing. It's actually a competitive advantage, and that is also what we are working a lot with now, together with Malaysian collaborators as well. A lot of events that we do is really to also showcase that sustainability is good business, and it is actually a competitive advantage to be ahead of your competitors as well.
So Sara, is there anything else you would like to share to our listeners?
No, I think we've covered a lot of things, I think, and I would say we are in exciting times, and I think it's hard. There are a lot of questions for all of us. I mean, given this year, I think it's been a very special year, a good year in some cases, because it has forced us to change more things quickly and to reflect on a few things. And I think now 2021 will actually be the year of action, where we will see how this pans out, so definitely a year to look forward to.
Thank you so much, Sara, for coming on our show. We have been speaking to Sara Hedin, Business Sweden's Trade Commissioner to Malaysia. For this video, check us out on our